everybody. This lesson is for Unit 6, Lesson 5 for Percents Part 1. So the first part of the lesson is having you convert a fraction to a decimal, and this is something that we've done quite a bit of before. So you're going to take the numerator and divide by the denominator. So 5 divided by 8, and then 8 goes into 5 0 times. So there's where your decimal would go, and you add a 0. 8 goes into 50 6 times, and 8 times 6 is 48. 50 minus 48 is 2, drop down a 0. So now 8 goes into 20 2 times. 8 times 2 is 16, so 20 minus 16 is 4. Drop down one more 0, 8 goes into 40 5 times. And if you subtract, you end up with 0. So the decimal for 5/8 is 0.625. So you're taking the numerator and dividing by the denominator. Now for converting decimals to percents, since percents are in terms of 100, if you're trying to convert a decimal to a percent, you're just going to multiply by 100, and when you multiply by 100, it's really just moving that decimal 2 places to the right. So if I were to take 0.625 and actually multiply it out, I'm going to put in 2 place values because my first two numbers are 0. So 0, 0, and then 5 times 1 is 5, 2 times 1 is 2, 1 times 6 is 6, and 0 times 1 is just 0. So I'll leave it off. And then I have 3 place values from the decimal point, 1, 2, 3. So I move my decimal from the end of the number, 1, 2, 3. So I get 62.5%. But if you can remember that multiplying by 100 is like moving the decimal place 2 places to the right, you wouldn't have to multiply it out longhand. So 2 places to the right, 1, 2, I still end up with 62.5%. Now to combine the two steps together, so converting a fraction to a percent, you're going to take your fraction and convert it to a decimal. So 4/5. I'm going to convert that to a decimal by taking my numerator and dividing by my denominator. 5 goes into 4 0 times. So I have my decimal, and I'm going to bring out a 0. 5 goes into 40 8 times, and that comes out evenly. So as a decimal, this is equal to 0.8. And remember, to convert to a percent, I'm going to multiply by 100, which is really the exact same as moving this 2 places to the right. So really, my percent, 2 places in, 1, 2, it's equal to 80%. So again, to convert a fraction to a percent, change to a decimal by dividing the numerator by the denominator, and then multiply by 100 to get to 80%. Going the other way now, to go from a percent to a fraction, you're going to want to convert the percentage to a decimal. So converting a decimal to a percent, we multiplied by 100. To go from a percent to a decimal, you divide by 100. And if multiplying by 100, you move 2 places to the right, dividing by 100 means you move 2 places to the left. So if this is where my decimal point is, if I divide by 100, really all that's doing is moving this 2 places to the right, or to the left. So this, as a decimal, would become 1.25. Now, to write it as a fraction, and really there's 2 ways. I'll show both ways for doing this. So now this is 1.25. Since this is 0.25, you can think of this as 1/25, because it's in the hundredth spot. So the 2 is in the tenths, the 5 is in the hundredths, so 25 hundredths, And the 1 is a whole number on the outside, so it's a mixed number with a whole number on the outside, 1 and 25 1/100ths. And then I can reduce this fraction by dividing a 25 out of each of those. So if I divide my numerator and my denominator by 25, I would end up with 1 and 1/4. 1 and 1/4 for this fraction. Another way to go straight from this percentage to a fraction, percents are always out of 100. So you could write 125 out of 100. So 125 out of 100. And if we reduce this fraction, so I'm going to divide out a 25 from each of these. I'm going to divide a 25 on the top and divide out a 25 on the bottom, because both 125 and 100 share 25. So 125 divided by 25, that equals 5. 100 divided by 25, that equals 4. And since this is an improper fraction, to convert it to a mixed number, it would be the same as 1 and 1/4. So both methods will work. You can convert it to a decimal first and then write it as a percentage over 100. And the only reason I converted to a decimal is because it was a percentage that's over 100 already. It's 125%. So then you can see that it's a whole 1 and then 25 hundredths here. Or you can write the entire number over 100 and simplify from there. So looking at this next example, 36%, you can think of this as being 36 over 100 because percents are out of 100. And then simplifying, if I divide out a 4 out of each numerator and denominator, 36 divided by 4, I would have 9. 100 divided by 4, I would have 25. So 9/25 would be this one as a fraction. So percents you can always write over 100, and if it's a percentage that's greater than 100, you're going to have either an improper fraction or a mixed number as your answer. The next part of this lesson has to do with converting or finding percents of a number, or part of a whole, they call it. And there's really two methods for solving these. The first method, you can set up a proportion like we've been using in this unit and then solve for the missing value. And this is the general percent proportion you'll use. So part of your number out of the whole equals the percentage amount out of 100. So make sure you have this in your notes. Write this down so that you've got it. And how this works. So what number is 30% of 120? So part of 120. This is our whole amount. So 120 is going to go in our denominator. Our 100 is still there from this part to whole proportion. And then 30%, that goes over 100. That's where our percentage goes. And so x is the amount we don't know. We don't know part of the 120. So now to solve this, you just cross multiply. So 100 times x is 100x. And then 30 times 120 is 3600. And then you just divide by 100 to get x by itself. And you end up with x equaling 36. So this is saying that 36 is 30% of 120. So again, first method, use this part to whole proportion and then cross multiply. You can also use this percentage of a number. So you can actually just set it up as an equation and solve if you can translate the math sentence into a math equation. So what number is 30% of 120? This is your variable. What number is going to represent n? And then is in math means equals. And then since we're working with percentages, 30%, you just want to convert these ones so that they're as decimals. So again, dividing by 100, move it 2 places to the left, this becomes 0.3. Of in math means to multiply, and then times 120. So now you just have a simple equation. You can multiply 0.3 times 120, and it comes out to equal 36. So both of these two methods will get you to the same answer. You can use your proportion problem, or you can set it up by translating it into math, to a math equation. So I just want to show one more example of this. So this time solving for a percent. This time we don't know the percent. So what percent of 36 or 32 is 40? So if I used my proportion one, the what percent, that's what we're solving for. So this is where our x is going to go. So I'm just going to start that off right away, x over 100, because we don't know what that percentage is. And then 30, or what percent of 32 is 40? Don't just think that the smaller number is what the part is. We want 32, or what percent of 32 is 40? 40 is a larger number, and we're comparing it to 32. So it helps to think of this proportion as being the is number over the of number. So of 32 is 40. Of is 32. So that's my bottom number. And then is the 40. That's my top number. And then you just cross multiply. So on your notes where you wrote the proportion equation, put the little is and the of with those two words, because it helps you know which word or which number goes where. And then you just cross multiply again. 40 times 100 is 4,000. 32 times x, you get 32x. And then just solve for x. So I want to get x by itself. I'm going to divide by 32. And then x equals 4,000 divided by 32, which is 125. So this one, my percentage is 125%. And this makes sense because we're looking at what percentage of 32 is 40. 40 is a larger number than 32, so it's going to be greater than 100%, because 32 of 32 would be 100%. So 40 of 32 is greater than 100%, and that's what we got here. As translating it to an equation, what percent of 32 is 40? So this what percent, that's our n value. I'm just going to put this little percent symbol by it so that I remember to convert it at the end. So n percent of, so times 32, so times 32 is, means equals, and then 40. So n percent times 32 equals 40. I want to get my percentage by itself, so I'm going to divide by 32. And really in math, I shouldn't have been using x's. I should really use this little multiplication symbol like this so that we don't confuse it with a variable. 32 divided by 32, we're left with our percentage, our unknown percentage. And then 40 divided by 32, that's actually 1.25. Now notice the difference in our answers. This one is 1.25, this one we got 125. When you're using your equation, you have to convert it back to a percent. So we have to multiply this by 100. So n is equal to 125%. So make sure when you use this method, if this method makes more sense and it's easier for you, make sure that when you multiply with the percentages like we did here, we converted it to a decimal. So instead of multiplying by 30, we multiplied by 0.3. Same with this one. When we multiply, our percentage is going to equal a decimal. You need to convert it back to a percent. So multiply by 100. Okay, so your assignment is on page 173 and 174. It's numbers 1 through 3 and 13 through 16. And this is actually a mid-unit assessment, so it's going to review everything that we've learned so far in Unit 6. So make sure you take your time with that and review a few of the practice problems from our other lessons before you take this quiz. Please let me know if you have questions. You can either send me an email, try to catch me on Skype, or attend one of my office hours.